Slay. The studio lights dim slightly as the camera pans across the set, settling on the host seated at the center of a sleek, modern desk. A graphic appears on the screen behind him. Todd Bowles on Bucs collapse, an inexcusable loss. The host leans forward, his tone calm but charged with the energy of a long night in the NFL. Welcome back, everyone. Tonight, we're breaking down one of the most dramatic and controversial finishes of the season. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who held a 14-point lead with just minutes to go, fell apart in spectacular fashion, losing 29-28 to the Atlanta Falcons. After the game, head coach Todd Bowles didn't hold anything back, calling the defeat inexcusable and saying it falls squarely on the players. Joining us now is Coach Bowles himself, along with quarterback Baker Mayfield and former NFL safety and analyst Marcus Whitfield. Coach, thank you for being here. Todd Bowles sits upright, hands clasped in front of him. His face still carries the weight of the loss, a blend of fatigue, frustration, and determination. Thanks for having me, he says quietly, his voice steady but tight. The host wastes no time, easing into the central question. Coz, you walked into that post-game press conference and delivered one of the most brutally honest emotional reactions we've seen from you. You used the word inexcusable, and you placed accountability on the players. Can you walk us through what you were feeling in those final minutes, and what led to those comments? Bowles exhaled, leaning back slightly. Look, I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. We had a 14-point lead. We had the game in our hands. We had the momentum. And then, in a matter of minutes, we let it slip away. That kind of lapse, especially this late in the season, is unacceptable. I've been coaching a long time. I know what preparation looks like. I know what execution looks like. And late in that game, we didn't execute. We didn't tackle. We didn't communicate. We didn't respond to pressure. And ultimately, that falls on the players on the field. His tone remains firm, but there's no malice, only a deep sense of responsibility. The host nods and shifts to Baker Mayfield, who sits with one hand resting on his knee, his expression thoughtful but somber. Baker, you threw for more than 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. You played a solid game for most of the night. But you still walked into that same press conference and said the loss was on your shoulders. Why did you feel the need to take that responsibility? Baker rubbed his hands together, choosing his words carefully. Because I'm the quarterback. I'm the one touching the ball on every play. I'm the one leading the offense. And when we stall, too. When we don't finish drives, when we leave the defense hanging out to dry, that reflects back on me. Yes, I made some big throws. Yes, we had good moments. But I also made mistakes. I also didn't close the deal when it mattered most. And when you're trying to make a playoff push, those moments define your season. Marcus Whitfield, the analyst, leans forward, looking directly at Bowles. Coach, I want to ask you something more pointed. You said the players needed to care enough where it hurts, that they needed to look in the mirror. Some people interpreted that as calling out your team's toughness or heart. Do you stand by that phrasing? Bowles doesn't flinch. Absolutely. Look, this isn't Pee-wee football. This isn't a hobby. This is the National Football League. Every single player in that locker room knows what's at stake every week. They know how hard it is to win. And they know how easily a season can slip away if you don't play with urgency and pride every snap. What I said wasn't about insulting them. It was about challenging them. Or, if you're not hurt by a loss like that, if you're not sick to your stomach over letting your teammates down, then you're in the wrong business. That's what I meant. The host allows a brief pause before redirecting. Let's talk about the actual sequence of events. Coach, the Falcons came back with a pair of late drives that shredded your defense. Missed tackles, blown coverages, Miscommunication. What happened? Was it scheme? Was it execution? Bowles' answer is immediate. Execution. Point blank. The scheme didn't change. The calls didn't change. The responsibilities didn't change. But our discipline did. Guys weren't sticking to their assignments. We had players trying to freelance, trying to make a hero play, and that's when breakdowns happen. We've talked all year about staying disciplined. Tonight, in the biggest moments, we didn't. Marcus jumps in. Baker, from your perspective, did the offense get conservative late in the game? Some fans are saying you guys went into prevent mode too early. Baker smirks in frustration. People love blaming the play calling, but at the end of the day, we didn't execute the plays that were called. It's simple football. Stay ahead of the chains. Convert third downs. Chew claw. We didn't do that. I missed throws. Receivers missed blocks. The run game stalled. You can call aggressive plays, but if the players don't execute them, it doesn't matter. We needed to finish. We didn't. The host turns back to Bowles. Coach, the loss puts you at 7-7. The NFC South is still technically open, but this game changes everything. Are you worried this loss could fracture the locker room? Bowles shakes his head with certainty. No. Look, players get emotional. Coaches get emotional. Everyone's frustrated tonight, and we should be. But this is a veteran group. These guys have been through pressure before. They've won playoff games. Some have won Super Bowls. The locker room isn't going to fracture. But we do need to refocus. This loss can't turn into 2 or 3 more. We need to respond right now. The conversation shifts to Marcus, who provides a former player's perspective. Coach, you mentioned freelancing and lack of discipline. Sometimes that comes from desperation players trying to force big plays because they don't trust the process anymore. Is that happening here? Bowles tilts his head slightly. It's a fair question. Desperation can creep in when guys feel the season slipping. But the truth is, we've been emphasizing fundamentals all year. We've been emphasizing consistency. When you see guys go off script, that tells me they're pressing instead of trusting. And that's where leadership in the locker room comes into play. Thos turns to Baker. That's a perfect segue. Vega, as the quarterback, how do you keep the offense focused during a collapse like this? Baker sighs. Honestly. Communication. Constant communication. You can feel momentum shift in a stadium. You can feel it in the huddle. The crowd gets louder. The pressure rises, and guys start breathing heavier. In those moments, I have to stay calm. Remind the team we've been here before. Remind them to stick to the fundamentals. Tonight, that wasn't enough. And that's on me, too. The host continues. Baker, you now have an extremely thin margin for error. How do you lead this team forward after something like this? Baker answers with conviction. You stay honest. You watch the tape. You fix the mistakes. And you don't point fingers. I meant what I said after the game. This starts with me. If I play sharper, if I finish drives, then maybe this conversation doesn't happen. I've been in the league long enough to know you can't dwell on these losses, but you also can't ignore them. The challenge is to learn from it without letting it define you. Marcus folds his arms and addresses Bowles again. Shits. Critics have been on you all season. You've heard the noise about your job security, about the direction of the team, about whether this roster is capable of competing. Do you feel pressure personally after this loss? Bowles takes a moment before answering. Pressure comes with the job. I don't waste time thinking about outside noise. My focus is on the guys in the building, the coaches on the staff, and the work we put in every day. 2. I feel urgency. Yes! Do I feel responsibility? Absolutely. But pressure doesn't coach football, preparation does. And that's where my energy goes. Then tutzes on the emotional intensity of Bowles' post-game remarks. Coach, you dropped a number of expletives in that press conference. People are talking about it everywhere. You rarely speak like that publicly. What pushed you to that level? Bowles rubs his forehead. Look, I'm not going to pretend that was my finest moment in terms of media professionalism. I'm human. I care deeply about this team. I care about the effort these guys put in every week. And when we don't play to our potential, when we give away games we should win, it hits me hard. The emotion came from wanting better, from expecting better. Sometimes, frustration boils over. Marcus adds, and I'll say this as a former player. Sometimes a coach showing emotion is the wake-up call a team needs. Bowles nods at the sentiment. The host pivots to the defensive side of the ball. Let's talk specifically about the defense, too. They gave up 13 points in the final minutes and allowed Atlanta to march down the field with ease. Is this a communication issue? A fatigue issue? Or personnel? Bowles answers, none of those excuses apply. We were fresh enough. We were healthy enough. This wasn't about injuries or conditioning. It was about discipline. We had guys out of position. We had players missing tackles they've made all year. And we had lapses in the secondary that cannot happen in crunch time. We will address it in the film room immediately. Conversation deepens. The host brings up the playoff landscape. Coach, the division is still in reach. But you now have little margin for error. How do you reset this team in just a few days? Bowles leans forward. We go back to fundamentals. We simplify the game plan. We get guys back into their core responsibilities. And we preach accountability, real accountability. That means owning mistakes, not deflecting them. That means leaders stepping up in practice. And it means playing with urgency. If we do that, we're still very much in this division race. The host then invites Marcus to give his broader analysis. Marcus addresses both Bowles and Baker. What I see is a team that's talented but inconsistent. They've shown they can dominate. They've shown they can compete with anyone. But they've also shown they can beat themselves. And tonight was the perfect example. This wasn't a story of being outmatched. They outplayed Atlanta for most of the game. But the NFL rewards teams that finish. The Buccaneers didn't finish. Bowles and Mayfield nod in agreement. Adds, the final segment approaches. The host asks each guest for their final thoughts. Baker speaks first. We still believe in what we have. We still believe in our locker room. And we still believe in the season. This loss hurts. It should hurt. But it can also fuel you. And that's where our focus is now. Bowles follows. I'm proud of our team. I'm proud of the work they've put in. But I also expect better from them, and they expect better from themselves. This isn't about tearing anyone down. This is about demanding excellence. And that's what we'll get back to. Marcus ends with a veteran's wisdom. Seasons turn on moments like these. They can break you or build you. The Buccaneers still have the chance to choose which way this goes. The host looks into the camera as the show prepares to close. A stunning loss, an emotional coach, a team searching for answers, and a season hanging in the balance. The Buccaneers have the talent to climb back into this race, but only if they can take this painful lesson and turn it into fuel. For Todd Bowles, Baker Mayfield, Marcus Whitfield, and our entire crew, I'm your host. Stay tuned. The NFC South drama is far from over.